Sewage lift stations are a crucial part of any wastewater treatment system. A slight problem with a pump at a remote station can cause huge problems if it goes undetected.
You have to have something that you trust and that's reliable in this situation because of the environmental concerns.
This monitor is the only patented product of its kind that allows operators to keep track of pump station activity. It's made by OmniSite and is a cellular transmitter that sends an alarm signal to OmniSite's internet server. Then within seconds, customers get word of the alarm by cell phone, email, or text message. And OmniSite's monitors are the easiest on the market to install, set up, and use.
OmniSite allows the average guy that doesn't have a lot of experience in electronics or electricity to be able to take a product out of the box, put it on a sewage pump station that could be located miles and miles away from the plant, and without a tremendous effort, be a success in the field.
All the details for installation are right here in OmniSite's user manual. But right now, we're going to walk you through the process step by step and give you some general guidelines to help it go smoothly. You can break down the whole process into 3 steps. Preparation, things to do before you even get here to the job site, the actual install, and setup, making sure the operator can run the system online. Preparation is simple. The day before installation, log on to OmniSite's website to activate the monitors. First, make sure there's cell service at your installation site by checking the zip code map. Then find the online activation form and enter the customer's name and address to set up monthly billing. Also, identify each unit being installed. Finally, go through a checklist of things you'll need for the install. Tools, a drill, drill bit, unibit, voltmeter, measuring tape, wire and conduit, the OmniSite units including a spare, and a high-gain antenna in case there's weak cell service. When it comes to the actual installation, mounting the unit, firing it up, and testing it, organization is key. Since you're probably not installing these every day, it's important to create some kind of system or process that will help you do each install the same way. With a routine, nothing can be left out, and it means every install is a successful one.
One of the first things that I do after pulling up to a job site is I walk around the station just so that I can see where I'm going to be mounting the unit, what's the most perfect spot for it. I've done a little bit of pre-mounting of things to make it go a little quicker for us today, but we're going to try to get the unit mounted eye level with the antenna as high as possible for the best reception. I'm going to go around and get my tools and then we'll get started with this.
To make things go a little more quickly, our technician has pre-drilled holes in the control panel, run the conduit and wire, and also mounted brackets to hold the OmniSite unit, which is sometimes necessary.
Another thing I've already looked at some of the alarms that we're going to get out of this control panel. Where I'm going to get my power, clean power, and the type of alarms that I'm going to go get. So I'll go get my unit and we'll get this thing mounted. Let me get the unit out. I've got it mounted in the front seat here due to the fact that my truck is heated and I don't have to worry about it bouncing around everywhere. Now that I've got my unit, we'll get it over here and get it mounted. I have my nuts and bolts already so that we can get through this thing pre-mounted, unless get some screws in this thing here. Now that we've got the unit installed, to save some time, I've already got the conduit installed and I've pulled my multi-stranded wire through and my power cord wire through. I use a multi-strand colored wire to identify different types of alarms, and if you've got multiple units, you can get some kind of system going by your color code. Let's get the power plug installed in here. I don't have the power installed in the control panel yet. With the screwdriver that they provide in the unit, we're going to install the neutral wire, get it in there really good, pull the screwdriver out, and give it a little bit of a tug to make sure that's in there really nice. Same way with the ground.
Now take the black wire, the power wire, and do the same thing, making sure the wire's in tight.
Alright, we're going to leave this off the unit right now because we don't want the unit to power up while we're going to our multi-stranded collars here. We'll get into the alarm wires. With the multi-strand, it makes it easier for that when you get into the control panel, you can distinguish your alarms. Don't cut off the extra wires. Save them, because that way if you have a problem with any of the wires that you put in there, you have something to fall back on and don't have to re-pull new wire through the unit. Now that I've got all the wires ready, I'm going to start installing them in the inputs that are going to be provided. But I need to get them to the other side so that I get a better view of what I'm doing here. With the screwdriver that's provided, put it in the unit, push down on it, and install the first input. Now I'll put the rest of them in for the second unit. The screwdriver, insert it, pull the screwdriver back out, give it a little tug, and we'll go in and get the rest of them installed.
The procedure is the same for the second alarm and the rest of the inputs, using the screwdriver to secure the wires.
Now that I've got the inputs wired in, let's get into putting our jumpers in. We're going to be using the 12 volt DC from the unit, so we have to make sure that we have a jumper wire from each one of these inputs over to the negative. If you don't put it over to the negative, it won't see the 12 volts out of the unit. Alright, let's start on our wiring our jumpers. Take the screwdriver that they provided with the jumpers that they provided with the unit. Insert the first one. It's very important that you put a jumper in for every input that you have in here. And if you're using the DC voltage from the unit, you have to make sure that you jumper all the way over to the negative of this unit, or it won't see the DC voltage.
The technician is wiring dry, unpowered contacts here, but the OmniSite system has universal inputs that also accept powered contacts between 12 volt DC or AC to 120 volt DC or AC. Once the jumper wires are installed, go back to the pump control panel to terminate the other end of your wires. Again, to save time, our technician has pre-identified the power points: neutral, ground, and 120 volts to power the OmniSite unit.
Alright, we know we have nice clean power down here, 120 volts. Let's wire the power in. Make sure it's nice and snug.
Then follow up with the neutral wire, and then the ground. Finally, it's time to finish wiring up the inputs.
One of the inputs that we're going to have to wire up today is our pump failures at this point here, or you're going to use a normally open contact. Also, we're going to be wiring up our pump runs, which has to be a normally open relay. Now let's start wiring them up. Now that I've got my pump runs and my pump failures wired up, we'll go over to these contacts over here. These are dry contacts, so we're going to have to get voltage out of the unit. We're going to use the 12 volt DC, and we'll install these wires for this alarm. Make sure they're in there good and tight. Yeah, if you're going to use dry contacts, you need to make sure that you have some kind of voltage going over to the unit, because it won't see the old type dry contacts anymore. So it has to have the 12 volt DC from the power unit to see these alarms.
The next step is measuring. First, measure the diameter of the wet well, and then pull up the floats and note the distance between the start and stop float. These measurements are programmed into the OmniSite unit.
First thing that we want to do is power the unit up. One of the things that you want to look at in the unit is that you've got primary power, the fact that you have backup power, which is the battery, that the RTU is running, and that you have good signal strength and it's ready to transmit. But before we can put in our measurements, we have to make sure that the unit is disabled, because if the unit's not disabled, it won't allow you to put these measurements and stuff in. Grab the key, put it up to the access key, and it's going to ask you to identify this key. Select number 1 and press enter. And now it's added the key, but the unit's still not disabled yet. All you've done is put a label on this key. Come down again, hit the access key. Now the unit is disabled. Now we can go in and put our information in. One of the first things we want to go to is hit the main menus up, hit the enter button. Scroll down to where it says enter setup, hit enter. Go down to where it says date and time. You would put in the date and time at this location. Exit. Come down to where we put in our measurements that we've got on the well and the stop and start. And that would be pump GPM calculations. Hit it in there. As you see, when it comes up, it's going to have pump 1 GPM 1,000 gallons. Scroll down to where it asks you the shape of the cylinder, which we already have in here. Scroll down to where it gives a decimal point. We want to enter this. Hit down, give us a decimal point, hit enter. Now it's asking us what our measurement was between our stop and start. Hit enter, it flashes. Come over, and our measurement was 1.4 feet. Hit enter. Now it's asking us what we got on the diameter. Hit enter. Hold the button in and it'll go around to 8 foot. And hit enter. And it gives you what the gallons are per the stop and start. Hit exit. Exit out of there. The high level float here at this location bounces around a little bit, so the default on the inputs are 5 seconds. I want to change that and make that 10 to 15 seconds. We go to where it says enter setup, hit enter. It says set up digital inputs. Hit enter. Input 1 happens to be our high level. You see it's flashing. Hit enter and it takes you over to where the seconds are. Hit the arrow key up and let's make that 15 seconds. And hit enter. At that point, we're finished as far as putting our inputs and our delay. It'll be 15 seconds before it will call out. Exit, exit, and exit.
Now the field programming is complete, but you must enable the unit by placing the key at the access pad before you leave the site.
Now that I'm done with the programming and the wiring of the unit, let's close it up and go to our next step of programming the unit.
After you've tested the installation, it's time to set up the system so that operators can get online, access the OmniSite website, and monitor their lift stations. Setup means going back online to complete 2 pages on OmniSite's website. The first page establishes the customer's call-out list, who should be notified, and in what order when alarms occur. Enter their names, phone numbers, and email addresses. When there's an alarm, the system automatically will call, email, or text message these individuals in the specified order. The second web page requires you to enter settings for each pump station's monitor. and setup is complete. The OmniSite owner can begin fully navigating the site 24 hours a day from any computer, anywhere. Remember, all the details are here in OmniSite's user manual. And if you run into problems, tech support is available at OmniSite's offices. You'll find that OmniSite is the easiest product of its kind to install, set up, and use. And by following the guidelines we've given you, every install should go smoothly.